Detective Lila Hart stared at the phone in her hand, Captain Banks's words echoing in her head. 72 hours, Hart, that's all you get. The chief superintendent is personally monitoring this case. The mayor's office is asking questions. They have made it clear. Solve it clean or you're done. Not transferred. Done. 4 years on the force, 4 years of watching the Whitaker family destroy good cops who got in their way. Detective Webb had questioned their nephew's drug arrest. Now he works warehouse security for minimum wage. His wife left him. His kids won't return his calls. Detective Green tried to investigate their city contracts. Federal tax charges appeared overnight. She lost her house, her pension, everything. Lieutenant Valdez died in federal prison, officially a heart attack, but everyone knew what happened when you crossed the wrong family. Hart had seen the pattern. Good cops who asked the wrong questions didn't just lose their jobs. They lost everything, their families, their futures, their lives. And she'd been asking the wrong questions for 4 years. All because they dared to do their job. And now it was Hart's turn. 72 hours to solve the most complex case of her life. The nightmare started that morning at 6:47 a.m. Hart's radio crackled while she was finishing her third cup of coffee at the all-night diner on Magazine Street. The same booth where she'd been coming since the academy. The same place she came when sleep wouldn't come and the nightmares about her parents' death got too loud. Hart got a body in St. Sebastian Cemetery, your closest. St. Sebastian, the graveyard where cops requested transfers after one night shift, where even hardened criminals wouldn't go after dark. When Hart arrived, her partner Brick Riley was already there, cigarette smoke mixing with the morning fog. Hart, this is some sick shit, real sick. The victim was positioned like an ancient offering, arms crossed perfectly, old coin placed over his mouth. Ash circles traced around him with surgical precision. Jesus, Brick, someone made this into art. Fucked up art, Riley muttered, his military training warring with something primal in his expression. That's when they heard the grinding, stone scraping against stone, deep and resonant. Every head in the cemetery turned toward the sound. Near the back of Saint Sebastian, the massive stone lid of an ancient tomb was sliding sideways. Slow, deliberate, impossible. What the fuck? Officer Boudreaux whispered, and his coffee cup slipped from nerveless fingers to shatter on the gravel. Crime scene photographer Jenny Mouton's camera hung forgotten as she stared at the opening crypt. One of the techs crossed himself, muttering rapid Spanish prayers. Fog poured from the breach like something alive, rolling across the ground in thick waves that moved against the morning breeze. Through that gray curtain, a silhouette appeared. Jesus Christ, Brick muttered, his hand moving toward his weapon. Tell me you're seeing this too. Hart couldn't speak. Every rational part of her mind insisted this was impossible, but she was watching it happen. The figure stepped from the tomb, fog swirling around him like winter itself. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing an immaculate suit that looked like he'd just stepped out of a boardroom instead of a grave. NOPD, Hart finally managed, her voice carrying across the silent cemetery. Stop and identify yourself. The man looked around with mild annoyance as if a dozen armed officers were a minor inconvenience. He began walking toward them with measured steps. Stop, Brick called out, weapon drawn. Don't take another step. The man paused, tilted his head as if considering the request, then continued walking. Officer Martinez bolted for his patrol car, shouting in Spanish about dead things walking. The sight of a cop fleeing in terror broke the spell holding the others. 2 more officers backed toward their vehicles, eyes wide with primal fear. Hold the line, Hart snapped, but she understood. Nothing in police training prepared you for this. The man approached close enough for Hart to see details. 6'2", pale skin, sharp features, and eyes the color of winter steel. He moved with predatory grace, expensive shoes silent on wet gravel. But it was his expression that chilled her. Utterly, completely bored. Despite a dozen weapons trained on him, he showed no fear, no concern. Just the mild irritation of someone whose nap had been interrupted. "You're stomping around on my roof," he said. His voice carried formal precision from another era. "Keep the noise down. You're scaring the dead." He swept his gaze across the assembled officers with the interest one might show pigeons, and boring the living. He completed his sentence. Officer Boudreaux's gun wavered, sweat beading despite the morning chill. "What the hell?" "Language, officer," the man interrupted without looking at him. "There are ladies present, both living and dead." Hart kept her weapon steady. "NOPD, identify yourself." "Talon Creed," he said simply. "You're trespassing. This is city property. The city owns the dirt. I own everything underneath." His cold gaze held no warmth. "You've been conducting your investigation on my roof." Brick stepped forward, his face red with frustration and fear. "Nobody lives in a graveyard." "I do." Creed's tone suggested he was explaining something obvious to a slow child. "And your murder victim was killed on my roof." Hart felt reality shifting. "If you live here, did you see what happened?" Creed's smile was sharp as winter ice. "I watched every tedious detail. The killer, the victim, their pathetic little ceremony. Meticulous work," he observed, as if commenting on a particularly well-executed painting. Though somewhat derivative, the symbolism lacks originality, just a poor attempt at copying an absolutely stunning work from earlier. "You recognize this?" Brick demanded, his hand still resting on his service weapon, knuckles white with tension. "I recognize the methodology." Creed's gaze never left the body. "It's a message." "What message?" "Bodies arranged like invitations, different cities, same ritualistic nonsense. Someone desperately wants my attention." His voice carried centuries of exhaustion. "Frankly, detective, your species lacks imagination. Same patterns, same symbols, same delusions of significance." "You watched it happen." Lila's voice was deadly quiet, though perfectly controlled. "You watched someone get murdered and didn't call the police?" "I watched someone get executed." Creed corrected her in a calm tone. "There is a distinction, though I doubt it would console the deceased." He produced a flash drive with casual indifference. "High definition, crystal audio. Though I should warn you, the audio won't help you much." Hart stared at this impossible man who spoke about murder like discussing stale theater. She'd spent 4 years fighting a system designed to destroy cops who cared too much, who asked too many questions, who couldn't let the dead rest quietly. Just like her parents had died, asking the wrong questions about the wrong people. "We'll need you to come to the precinct," she said, "and why? We'll need your help with this murder." How refreshing, honesty from a badge wearer. "Unfortunately, detective, I come from the place when people shut up and did their jobs. Your problems bore me." Creed's laugh was soft and genuinely amused. "A man died here. People die every day. If I concerned myself with every act of human violence, I'd have no time for more interesting pursuits." His icy stare never wavered. "Why should this death matter to me?" Hart looked at the ritual markings, at the positioned body, and then at the man who treated authority like a suggestion and spoke about murders and deaths like old gossip. 72 hours, her career hanging by a thread, the Whitakers circling like vultures, and the only witness was a man who lived among the dead and considered authority an inconvenience. Creed's Grave is the first book in the new Creed-Hart crime thriller series by ChaseAustin. Listen now on my YouTube channel. Part 1, link in description.